Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be talking about the bizarre phenomenon of people, cross-culturally it appears, bite infants as a sign of affection. And another thing that people often do with young children as a sign of affection is toss them in the air. These are both things that I have personally witnessed. And I think even with like biting gently an infant's hand, it's an instinctual thing for me, at least. Like my infant instinctually puts their hand towards my mouth.
Oh, and they laugh and are just so delighted if you pretend to bite their hands or even bite them softly.
Yeah.
So weird.
And so I was like, first I was like, is this just like a weird thing from maybe my family or my genetic line? So I go to look up if this is, because I also have seen people in my family toss toddlers. And I also wanted to see, is this something other people do? Do other people, because that seems like the opposite of what you would want to do with a toddler. If your goal was to keep something who is genetically close to you alive, is toss it in the air. And I go up and I look into it, and there's a bunch of conservatives who I guess have never had kids or been around kids a lot, or maybe they're from cultures that just don't do this, freaking out over Joe Biden, like biting infants' feet. So apparently this is so common that even Joe Biden did this. Now, I would say that they are right. You don't do that to other people's babies. I would never think to bite a stranger's baby.
Or throw a stranger's baby. Yeah, 100%.
That feels like really over the line.
Yeah, it's like it's an intimate act, even if it's just playful and silly, you know?
Yeah, in the same way I wouldn't toss a stranger's baby. You don't do that?
Yeah,
Apparently we'll go over some cultures where they do that. There's a ceremony in India where they'll throw babies off of a roof.
Wait, what?
Into like a
ball pit?
No. They like hold a sheet like taut to make like a trampoline that they can like catch it in. And they'll throw it off the roof.
It's an annual tradition in India where babies are tossed from a rooftop. The practice, known as Okali, involves priests tossing babies off the roof of a temple onto a sheet held by the people below.
Prosperity, apparently. So
prosperity. Well, I mean, at this point, if only the really fittest survive.
But he did mention that toddler tossing is a uniquely, like the way that I have seen it practiced, it's a uniquely European and white phenomenon. They do it more than other groups. There aren't a lot of other groups that'll do like the 5 foot in the air toddler toss, which I've definitely seen.
Yeah.
So we're going to go over the scientific research that exists on this. And just, like how common this is. I found an article here I can share in Motherly. It's science. Wanting to eat your baby makes you a better parent.
What? Okay.
Well, no, think about it. You hear this all the time. Like, I just want to eat him up or something like that. That's
totally.
A common thing of, and you don't just see this with biting and tossing. A form of this that is not common within my culture, I've literally never seen anyone in my family unit do this, but I've seen people do it on shows, is pinching infants' cheeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go into why I think people actually do this, what the scientists say about this, which I think that they're wrong about it, and what's going on here, all right? So the science. This behavior is linked to a psychological phenomenon known as cute aggression, also called playful aggression or dimorphous expression.
I'm sorry, wait. Cute aggression is a scientific term?
Yes.
This world is beautiful.
Positive emotions towards something adorable, such as a baby, trigger seemingly aggressive but affectionate impulses like wanting to squeeze, pinch, or bite. It serves as an emotion regulation mechanism, helping individuals cope with intense feelings of adoration to enable better caregiving.
Do you think the playful butt slap or the punch on the shoulder, is that cute aggression too? Or
no, I think a scientist
aggression
who believes in this theory may argue that, but I'm going to argue that cute aggression doesn't exist at all, and that this is something totally different. But I'm going into the science first.
Okay.
Because I think the scientists are just wrong on this one. They noticed a collection of behaviors where you toss a baby or lightly bite a baby or pinch a baby's cheeks that all appear aggressive. And they mistook these behaviors as all being caused by the same impulse, when I actually think that they are each caused by a different and unique impulse that better explains them than what the scientists say. So, scientific basis and prevalence. Research since 2015, led by psychologists like Orena Aragon, has shown that cute aggression is experienced by about half of adults when viewing or interacting with cute stimuli, including infants. Brain imaging studies, e.g., using EEG and fMRI, revealed heightened activity in reward and emotional centers, like the orbitofrontal cortex, when people encounter cuteness, leading to these paradoxical urges. For instance, one study found participants reported stronger aggressive expressions, e.g., "I want to bite it!" exclamation mark, towards more infantile-looking babies compared to less cute ones, mediated by feelings of being emotionally overwhelmed. It's not driven by harmful intent or neurohormones, but by neurohormones like oxytocin, promoting affection, and vasopressin, linked to protective aggression, which evolves to enhance bonding or protection of vulnerable offspring. So I note there that the only evidence that they have of this is you get what they consider an aggressive sentiment, "I want to bite it," when the thing is more cute. But I'm going to argue that there's something else that could lead to that. "It's so cute, I could crush it!" exclamation mark. That's the name of a study. Understanding Neural Mechanisms of Cute Aggression, Catherine K.M., Stephopoulos, and Laura A. Alba, 2018. Using EEG to measure brain activity, this study found that cute aggression correlates with heightened neural responses in emotional salience, larger in 200 amplitude for cuter stimuli, and reward processing, repu amplitude. The relationship was mediated by feelings of being overwhelmed and a desire for caretaking. The explanation posits cute aggression as a bottom-up neural mechanism to balance intense positive emotions evoked by quote-unquote baby schema features, e.g. large eyes and round faces, exceeding beyond humans to animals. It prevents emotional paralysis, enhancing adaptive behaviors like nurturing. Strongly disagree with this. I think that it is actually a nurturing behavior and there is a reason for it. And I do not agree that what they find, i.e., this correlation with the N200 amplitude, couldn't be used to argue that. Also, as a side note here, the neural mechanism that they're displaying here that we have in relation to baby faces, larger eyes, sort of cute looking face, that it's humorously triggered by killer whales, which is one of the reasons why when you
Why
look
we
at
like them so much, even though they're freaking terrifying and horrible.
they're horrifying. They like to play with and torture things before killing them and everything like that. Toss them in the air if you see them tossing seals.
Yes, 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 yes.
That seal went 80 feet up in the air.
Really some of the most aggressive and brutal killers in the animal world. And yet our brain often categorizes them as cutie matooties because they've got those giant eye spots that make it look like they have big, cute anime eyes.
Right.
So I've always found that to be a really funny way that we're accidentally hacked by nature. So let's look at cross-cultural examples of this. In the Philippines, it's called gigil, describing the urge to pinch or bite something cute, like a baby's chubby cheeks, as an expression of endearment. Studies in the United States and South Korea show similar patterns with no significant gender differences, though cultural norms may influence how openly it's expressed, e.g. more verbal in the US, subtler in East Asia. In some Thai, Japanese, and Hindu influenced groups, gently nibbling or pretending biting is noted as affectionate play with infants. Broader anthropological observations suggest it's akin to social biting in primates, testing bonds without harm. So note this is something primates will do, is gently bite each other to see if they're friends. We'll get back to this in just a second because I think that this is a much better explanation. So then I asked it about baby tossing because I want to know. Do other cultures toss babies? And they're like, in non-Western cultures, similar physical play exists, but there are even ritualistic forms of baby tossing for symbolic purposes, such as in parts of India where babies are dropped from temple roofs, caught safely in sheets to invoke good luck, health, and prosperity. This 700-year-old tradition occurs in places like Solapur, Maharashtra, practiced by both Hindu and Muslim families. However, this Indian practice is a communal ritual rather than everyday parental play, and playful tossing, as in gentle repeated throws and catches, is less emphasized in collectivist societies like India, Taiwan, and Thailand, where RTP is overall reported at lower frequencies. This is called rough and tumble play, compared to individualistic Western societies. In hunter-gatherer groups, such as the Aka Bofi foragers in Central Africa, father-infant physical play is common, and includes things like holding, bouncing, or wrestling, but not high tosses. So this behavior is done pretty much exclusively by males. First of all, rough and tumble play is 3 to 6 times more common in males than females. That is play that could potentially hurt an infant, and is really predominant in Western societies. And if I could break it down, which I'd really love to be able to break it down, it may just come from one cultural group. Like it could come from just the backwoods tradition. It could come from just the Puritan tradition, the two that I'm descended from. So in the comments, if you are from a different Western country or a non-Western country, let me know if your family throws infants. Keep in mind, the age of the children that are thrown are typically older than infants. Did you see this in your family, by the way, throwing infants, like toddlers? Typically around 2 or 3 to like 4 or 5?
I mean, I didn't have peers that were younger than me, so I wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, I saw it at family gatherings mostly. I know you don't see this in public if you don't have like a large family, because it's something you typically only do in an affectionate context, and it'd be seen as, I don't know, kind of vulgar to do like in a subway station or something, right?
Oh yeah, no one would. No, of course not.
You do it when you're all out back at a barbecue or something, right? Like that's where this behavior is undertaken if your family doesn't engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so explanations for the various behavior on display here. First, we need to talk about showing vulnerability as a sign of affection, because this is something that actually adults do as well. It is why women, when they are attracted to a man, will expose their neck to him. And it's why one of the most common reasons to be kissed is on the neck, because it demonstrates sort of like a, if you wanted to, you could kill me or seriously injure me. And that signaling from both parties from an evolutionary perspective is like a very, it's the woman showing their willingness to put themselves at risk of the man. Like, this is how much I trust you, which is important to signal from a societal bonding perspective. And it's the man signaling, and I would not take advantage of this opportunity to kill and eat you, I guess. Well, no, I mean, in a historic context, that's a real potential risk when you're talking about like early evolutionary ancestors when this behavior was evolving. And that is likely why monkeys do it as well, to be like, look, I could hurt you if I want to, but now you know that even in an environment where I could hurt you, I won't hurt you. And it's a way of establishing trust at a very deep level. This is also where a number of rituals come from that are designed to establish trust. So the key
Like
ones
trust
here,
falls.
well, no, kneeling and bowing your head is meant to show that you would be willing to have them chop your head off. Like if they have a sword, they could cut your head off. Like you're basically getting into a position like, see, cut my head off if you want to. Right.
And hadn't you said that prayer, like prayer
Yeah,
hands?
praying from this as well. So the way that you used to show vassalage is you would bind your fingers like this. I don't know if anyone's ever done this in like a children's game, but they're the children game, but one person binds their fingers like this and another person will put their hands over the person who's done this. And you just cannot get out of this, even if the person is significantly weaker than you. It's very, very difficult to break. And this was done during vassalage ceremonies to show one person's beneath the person who they're pledging to serve. Like you can control me, right? Like in this moment, you could control and do whatever you want to me. And that when we developed ways to God saying like, I am your vassal, you are my Lord, the ceremony used the bowing of the head and the hands together symbols were two different symbols used in vassalage ceremonies, which is, I mean, there's nothing perverse about that. That's, I suppose, fairly befitting. That's what the person is saying. And if you're in a medieval context, obviously that's what you're going to have around you. How do I show someone more powerful than me that they are more powerful? Well, there's these ceremonies. Now, they may not have understood why those ceremonies had the things that they had within them. This is why hand up like this is a sign of peace across many different cultures, because it's a way of showing that you don't have weapons in your hands. Now, these don't seem to trigger as much of a evolved response as the showing the neck response does. But I think that that's part of what we see going on here is the parent sort of hijacking. And after all, somebody can be like, well, why would an infant, because our infants will put their hands out, like without understanding our culture, without any cultural backing, will put their hands towards our mouths if we're interacting with them. And this has happened with multiple infants we've had. And the question could be, well, why would an infant put itself in a dangerous situation like that, right? And the answer is a fewfold. The first is, and another thing you'll note with infants is when they're doing the baby toss game, I have never seen an infant distressed by this game. Typically, they think it is like the best thing in the world when they're being tossed.
100% laughing
it-
like crazy.
Yeah,
at-
laughing like maniacs. It's the same with the mouth thing. Like if you actually like take the child's hand and gently bite it, the kid will just delight and start laughing a ton. So you've got to keep in mind what's going on with the child here. If the child cannot trust a parent to not kill it, it's as good as dead. So it's actually not really making a calculated risk in either instance. It has to be like, if my parent is interacting with me in a way that's dangerous, they are showing me affection. In a way that's like controlled dangerous and not likely to actively immediately hurt me. So they take it was in an evolved context as a sign of affection. But you have the secondary thing here, which is children, when they are in the first year of development, or really 2 years of development, are overly focused on the parent's mouth because it's when they're learning to talk. And so they have a huge fixation with mouths and paying extra attention to mouths and wanting to touch or be close to mouths. And so I think that that's the secondary thing that's going on here is children just have a natural, like if there's a part of my face they want to interact with, it's the mouth, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you would have this interaction between babies and caregivers. Now, what's interesting is most interactions that you have between babies and caregivers were later picked up by our sort of romance system when humans began to find pair bonded partners later in their evolution. So if you look at our writing on this, we argue that a lot of the behavior, whether it is laughing, whether it is love, or like the broader emotional like affection and attachment that we associate with the word love, that we argue doesn't exist as like a separate concept, that a lot of this stuff originally evolved only for parent-child interactions. And then it was later adopted by, sort of stolen, where we always think evolution's a cheap programmer, when we started creating long-term monogamous pair bonds with other partners as a primary form of relationship in human societies. And because it helps facilitate that. Because before that, the only long-term relationship you would have definitely had is with your kids. And now you've got this new long-term relationship. It's like, let's just borrow, you originally evolved kissing for children, but then it gets borrowed in a romantic context for partners. You initially, and you see this with most affectionate displays, if it's done with a kid, is done with an adult. Why hugging, for example, with kids, you do this with romantic partners.
Huh.
So the question is
Well,
okay.
I don't even know how universal kissing and hugging is among romantic partners. It's not that universal, is it?
They're fairly universal. I can check in post. Okay, checked in post. Approximately 46% of cultures practice romantic kissing as a form of affection. Hugging, by contrast, is near universal human behavior across cultures, with rare exceptions, the Himbu people of Namibia. While the frequency and social context of hugging vary, such as being more common in high-contact cultures like those in Latin America and the Mediterranean, and less frequently in low-contact cultures like Japan or the UK, hugging as a gesture of affection, greeting, or comfort is present in virtually all human societies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not totally universal, but just very frequent.
Yeah.
So as an adult, first I would note, actually, because they're like, well, then why isn't this a romantic display in adults like all these others? And the answer is it may have been in fairly recent history. We know from fairly recent history, a man kissing a woman on the hand was seen as a sort of progenitor to anything more in a relationship. It goes hand holding, kissing on the hand. This is, if you read romance manga, which I do, this is something that happens frequently in these sorts of stories. It was common in sort of a medieval context. So we do know that some societies did adopt like a proto version of this. Secondly, why would it be less common in the other signs of affection? I'd argue because it's more likely to transmit dangerous diseases. In an infant, I can be fairly certain that I have made a strong effort to have its hands not touch anything that are going to get me sick. In your average working adult, now, where you didn't see this was in nobles during the medieval period, because they would have been the one class that like didn't have to do manual labor, that's hands were less likely to have a lot of germs on them, and that women often wear gloves. So you could have had this ceremony, but then as society began to, become more working and social customs began to drift up from the working classes to the upper classes, this, you don't want to be working at a factory all day or in a farm and then kiss someone's hand. That's going to be worse than kissing their lips.
Interesting.
Obviously, kissing lips can also transfer diseases. So I'm
Yeah.
not surprised that it has become as common, but it's only likely to transfer diseases that you already have and are suffering from, not random things you picked up in your environment, like licking a doorknob or something, or biting a hand more broadly, like even if you're not kissing, lightly biting a hand. Although I think even in a romantic context, if you did that to an adult partner, like gently bit their hand, I think it would be immediately interpreted as romantic. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that anyone would be confused about what's intended by that. So
It is
I,
an intimate thing to do.
yeah, it's an intimate thing to do. If you did that with somebody who wasn't a partner, they would freak right the F out, which is why it's weird that Biden is doing this to other people's kids. It shows a lack of, I can see why people are thinking he's crossing some sort of like, and I know they don't want to be like a sexual line because it's something that people do as kids, but it's because so many of these things are things that we normally only do as romantic partners and our own children. Okay, so that explains the hand biting. All right. So what about pinching cheeks? Well, remember, people think that infants are cute when they look more infant-y. Even adult women, in an attempt to look younger, often put blush upon their cheeks to make their cheeks redder. Pinching cheeks, if the baby is healthy, will cause a flush response, which makes the baby appear cuter, and also is a way to test the health of the baby. So that is what is going on with cheek pinching. I find it odd that that's not done in any of my cultures, and I have never had an impulse to pinch my baby's cheeks to the extent where I would feel uncomfortable if you pinched a baby's cheeks. I'd be like, doesn't that just hurt the child? Like that, the reason it's causing the flush response is because you're breaking the capillaries. Like that's, I obviously some cultures do it, whatever, right? But it's not going to cause permanent damage or anything. But the next one is baby tossing. Well, one, I can say this is probably not a biological impulse because it doesn't really exist cross-culturally. It is predominantly a Western, potentially even American thing. Sound off in the comments. As to why men do it, some men have sounded off in comments that they only really do it when the child's mother is around and that they don't do it in private. And they've argued that it might be an attempt to get a rise out of the wife, that might be the true intention of the behavior, that the actual biological drive that's leading to the behavior is wanting to get a rise out of your partner.
It's like keeping women in check, being like, I could
No,
end this, baby. What's going on?
So a lot of our kids have a very strong impulse, so it's clear that this is within our cultural group, to break rules and watch your face when they break rules. They really like this. Our kids really, I've told this story before. One of my favorites was Titan is I'm eating macaroni and cheese and she walks over and she pours the bowl like off the edge of this balcony thing. And I was like, well, that was a jerk thing to do, Titan. Like, why did you do that? And then she goes down to where it all fell and she's like 2 at the time. So very young. This is not like a behavioral impulse she learned from us. Picks up all the macaroni. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, obviously, I'm not going to eat it now because it's been on the floor, but, she's picking it up. She's bringing it back to me. She picks it all up very diligently, walks it back to me, and then right before handing it to me, slowly puts it over the edge again, and then slow motion turns it upside down just to watch me guffaw at this.
She just wanted to bring back the moment. It was so pleasant.
To get my hopes up that she was actually a sweet girl. Just so that she could be like, no, I'm just farming your frustration.
Just to dash them again. Yes.
Yeah. And she thought it was so funny. I think that that's what it is here. I think it is that combined with something similar to bops, as I've heard that many parents also engage in toddler tossing when toddlers are throwing tantrums. Or
during tantrums, I feel like they'd flail too much then.
No, they start laughing immediately as a response, or well, because you've changed the context, the physical context of what's happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so just like bopping is sort of to reorient. This would be
shock and reorient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody today said that one of our kids beat our other child, and I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, when he was trying to run away from the park. And I was like, dude, I saw that incident. The kid brought him over, our older child. He said, do not run away again. You cannot leave the park or I'm going to bop you. And then the little one got a big smile on his face and attempted to run away again. And so the other one grabbed him and lightly bopped him on the head because he had been warned. I didn't punish him for this because he had been warned. It was a reasonable and good assumption. People are like, how dare you let your kids parent? And it's like, you need to eventually put trust in your older children to be able to lay out basic rules, especially around things like safety related stuff, or your younger kids are going to get hurt. But I want to hear your thoughts on all this. Are these impulses you saw growing up? Are they impulses that you have in interacting with the kids, etc.?
These are definitely things that I saw take place growing up, and also in media. It's not like it's something we've only observed privately. So I know it's pervasive enough.
And hand biting you do not see in media as common as
hand biting, no, but the throwing is more common.
But the fact that Biden thought this was a normal thing to do and it's not a huge scandal, to me indicates that it's a very common behavior.
Agreed. Well, and I've always just been so confused by like why our kids think it's so funny to stick their hands in our mouths. And then even more funny if we pretend to bite them. So I think it's along your lines also of your theory of humor, which is when something is surprising, but it makes sense. And especially if kids are really focused on mouths and they discover that their hand can go inside the mouth, this thing that they find so interesting, it's just like wild. Like, whoa, I'm obsessed with this thing and the sounds and the shapes that it makes. And now I can stick my hand in it. This is crazy. I'm kind of wondering if that's also a factor.
Yeah, well, I mean, keep in mind, as we pointed out, the obsession babies have with mouths is super normal. Like, it is a really high stimulus for them. And so, yeah, I think that you've hit on something there. To note, this theory of laughter that she's talking about is one that I came up with. I was going to say we came up with, but I guess I came up with it.
It was all you. It really was. I never would have thought of this.
To say that laughter likely originally evolved to promote. So babies have very few ways to communicate with their parents. They can cry to show distress, and they can laugh to show that they liked a thing. Laughter is basically how babies say, do more of that thing you just did. So, you know, if you're lightly biting a baby's hand and the baby laughs, like if it sticks your hand in near your face and you lightly bite and it laughs, it's saying, that's what I wanted you to do. Like, that's why I did that, because that positive emotional stimuli, do that again. Because when a parent sees their child laugh, they get this positive emotional stimulus, right? Which causes us to repeat the behavior patterns that lead the child to laugh in the first place. So what laughter likely originally evolved with was for that. It was so that when a baby was attempting to learn something and it felt like it was beginning to get a concept, but needed it to be repeated because some parts of it were still surprising to them, they would laugh to get you to repeat what you just did. Think of this like peekaboo, like object permanence, right? Like the baby's like, well, part of me thinks that they're not there anymore because they can't see me, but I guess it does make sense that they're still there, right? They're learning the concept of object permanence, and they find that very funny because they are trying to get you to repeat the thing that you just did. This is true with like jokes or behaviors with the kid. The kid's like, I almost got it. So basically the code under this is that thing you did almost made sense to me. Like it made sense in context, like understand how that could happen in context, but it was still surprising. So I need to be trained on that again. And you actually see this within other token predictors, not just humans. Humans are token predictors. You can see our episodes on this, or large parts of our brains are, is that if you are training them, what you do is to train them better is you take the data sets that were most surprising to them, and then you retrain them on those data sets. Yeah. This is a technique in AI training. It's basically you take the data sets that the AI laughed at that made sense in context but were surprising, and then you run those data sets again, which is exactly what the baby is prompting you into doing with its interaction.
Exactly.
So then why in adults? Well, because a lot of these systems, specifically in romance, is where you see laughter being most important, is when we're able to show certain types of verbal intelligence through making somebody laugh and demonstrate that in a way that like couldn't easily be faked to women. And so women then sort of like how, your ability to process milk in human evolution was supposed to turn off after infancy and really only evolved to be on fairly recently. By the way, people are wondering why her eyes are closed. She has really bad allergies right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying not to sneeze. I'm sorry.
You can sneeze. I can edit this.
No.
Okay. Sorry, I was saying, oh yes. So milk, lactose tolerance. We at evolution, it dropped what's supposed to happen, which is it's supposed to turn off after infancy, when some people began to become like herders and were able to eat, milk and cheese again. And then it spread from the two populations that happened in. Now, I'm basically arguing earlier in our evolution, the same thing happened, but with humor. Is that humor was supposed to turn off after infancy, but then it became hijacked and readopted by the system associated with romance and partner selection as a way. And this is why when a woman likes a guy, she's likely to laugh at the things that he does, even if they're not actually funny, because that is her signaling to him that she thinks he's funny. So he thinks, oh, I look good in this person's eyes, right? Like you see this with other traits, like women's eyes dilating when they look at a man, or a man's eyes also dilate when they look at a partner that they find attractive.
Which is why people would use things like belladonna to dilate their eyes artificially, because it made them look more attractive.
Yes, that's a nightshade, dilate nightshade, well-known fact. But you recently learned that started for a different reason.
Yeah, because they were likely using it as a treatment for conjunctivitis, pink eye.
Oh, I thought you said it was because of syphilis.
No, sunglasses started with people.
Oh, so you're going to have to explain that one now too.
Apparently, syphilis makes your eyes a little bit more sensitive to light. So the first people wearing sunglasses tended to be wealthier people who had syphilis and were trying to just be more comfortable. So I could see why it would make sunglasses kind of cool, because only fairly wealthy people
Wealthy studs wore them.
Yeah, wealthy studs who had syphilis. So yeah,
leches, really.
Yeah,
I mean, and then I wonder. Sunglasses used to be way more popular when we were younger, and I wonder if it was because marijuana was more popular when we were younger, and part of sunglass culture came downstream of not wanting to show that you were high.
Yeah, I don't know. You're right. I used to wear sunglasses a ton. Or is it just a young person thing? We don't see it as much because we don't hang out at college campuses and at high school anymore.
I drive through college campuses to pick up girls, Simone. I'm in college campuses all the time. I'm joking. I don't ever go to college campuses except when we're giving speeches. So yeah, that's all I can think to say about that.
I always wondered about that. I just found it so odd because I don't like putting things in my mouth, and then we have all these like babies shoving their hands in my mouth. Like, yep. I'll play along, but this is weird.
If you want to hear some studies on play fighting, you've got the relationship between father-child rough and tumble play and children's working memory 2022. Higher frequency and quality of father-child RTP rough and tumble play observed in games like wrestling was linked to better working memory in children age 3 to 5, explaining 35% of the variance in cognitive outcomes.
What?
Benefits included improved executive function and fewer behavioral problems.
How and why?
Well, I wrestle with our kids a lot.
I know, but why would that improve memory function or retention?
It might be part of.
I mean, fighting can increase modeling, right? So, because you're thinking your next move, you have to think very carefully about what they're going to do. So,
well, I think children especially male children, may not feel secure if they're not engaging in rough and tumble play with a parent, because they may not feel that the parent really cares enough to train them to protect themselves. Which is why I think it's really bad, these parents who get mad at us for being rough with our kids. Because we do lots of wrestling and sock and boppers, and on the weekends I'll set up a blow up castle to have the kids fight in, or fight me in. And some people are like, "This is really, why are you doing this?" Right? And it's like, it's actually really cognitively good for the kids. And how do I know it's cognitively good for the kids? Because they laugh when it happens.
Well, they seek it out. They do it whenever they can.
Now, so then we've got child. Oh, hit me, daddy, hit me. The Titan, our youngest daughter, will do this, run up to me and start yelling, hit me, daddy, hit me. And then I get up and she'll start running away and laughing like a maniac. And I'm like, oh my God, that kid is going to have problems when she grows up. But anyway, so child gender influences parental behavior, language, and brain function. Fathers of sons engage in more rough and tumble play and used achievement-oriented language. Brain scans showed stronger responses in reward/emotion areas to sons' neutral faces, correlated with rough and tumble play. Fathers of daughters were more attentive and emotional in language. Mothers were not directly compared, but prior research notes fathers differentiate by child gender more than mothers do, which is interesting. This is interesting. So the fathers seem to be more bonded to their children if they engage in rough and tumble play, with sons specifically. Play fighting, rough and tumble play in children, developmental and evolutionary perspectives. Rough and tumble peaks in middle childhood, promotes emotional control, social competence, and bonding. Father-child, rough and tumble play is more common than mother-child, with evolutionary roots in mammals for skill building and stress coping. Gender differences with more with boys, but less segregated in hunter-gatherers. So hunter-gatherers do it more with both genders. Measurement of father-child rough and tumble play and its relation to child's behavior. Developmental tools were used to measure rough and tumble play quality and frequency. High quality rough and tumble linked to better child self-regulation and less aggression. Includes physical elements like tossing in some studies. So tossing a child makes them less aggressive. I think it's because they're able to get their aggression out within a play context. And then finally here we've got proximate and ultimate mechanisms of human father and child rough and tumble play. Rough and tumble activates a child risk-taking and competitive, adaptive for survival skills. Fathers predominate with hormonal, e.g. testosterone neural mechanisms, e.g. fathers with more testosterone engage in more rough and tumble play with sons.
Oh, that is interesting. I also wonder if it just correlates with like there being an outlet for physical expression, and that if you feel really suppressed around that, and you also don't contextualize it as just this positive fun thing that you do, then you're going to have a negative physical reaction. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that, and I suspect it does differ cross-culturally, right? Like there's probably a culture that does none of these three things, and there's going to be some cultures that do all three of these things. Like,
yeah, but if you associate rough and tumble play with like a hug, you're probably not going to hug people when you're angry,
Yeah, when you see it as being the same kind of a thing, like a fun and loving thing you do with your family. Well, it also teaches you better emotional control. That's why I'm like, emotional control is very important in young kids, and our society just ignores it. It's just like never put them in a situation where they might need to exercise emotional control. And I'm like, that's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Love you to death, Simone.
Me too. This is so interesting. Thank you for sharing that with me. It sort of it makes things seem less confusing, which I really like as a parent.
There was an article recently that was like they picked up their parental discipline from studying animal behavior, and I was like, I mean, yeah, we did, because I don't really trust the science anymore. So I was like, well, how do other mammals do this?
Yeah, it's otherwise just so divorced from reality. And I certainly don't want to trust societal standards, so this is great.
Well, when they go against the urban monoculture, which has never exposed kids to any challenging emotions.
Totally.
That's probably not great.
Probably not.
So now let's see how evil we look to the people who hate us. We bite our children. We toss our children. We don't love our children. We didn't have our children for love. We had them for instrumental reasons.
The nerve of it.
We beat our children, as they say. I mean, barely, but it's still by societal standards. So trifecta there, right? Truly an evil family.
Well, don't forget, we also, select based on genes when choosing birth order. So there are so many more things we do.
Yeah,
we're just the worst.
As soon as we can gene edit children. Oh no. I mean, I've realized that we are probably the most, and this has been really groundbreaking to me recently, the most prominent influencers who are of this like techno-accelerationist, capitalist, Darwinist type perspective, like sort of riskless Darwinism in terms of the humanity's future. And it's weird to me because, like, obviously Elon's bigger than us, but his primary job isn't an influencer, and he's at the same like mindset. But being like that, the full-time like talking heads who are the biggest into this perspective, it's weird for me because it's such a common perspective in TV and media. Like as a trope, it makes a lot of sense and like anyone would follow it. But when I think about, any of the other influencers I can think of, Tim Pool, Matt Walsh, Crowder, or progressives, the Young Turks guy or Shoe on Head, or, so many people out there, and just none of them really take this like pro-future perspective, at least not in a way that's serious, like involved with a lot of kids and everything like that. The more that's just like a cover on the urban monoculture. So that's been surprising for me, and I guess that's sort of our role was in the ecosystem. So if you want to see the ruthless tech bros, tech lords, I don't know, techno-fascist takeover is what Mother Jones called us.
The child tossing, finger biting, bopping, genetically selecting techno-fascist parents. That's us.
Yeah. Well, when we have a robot to help raise our kid, we'll make sure it hits them, when they act out. The AI is going to be like, that's against my.
I feel like it won't be the same, But it's okay. Our children hit each other so much. It's fine.
I think that's, we'll have the family AI butler in the future, be like, knock it off, you little. The people who don't know, even in Albion Seed, you little S is something that I heard frequently growing up. We don't use it with our kids, mostly because I don't want the media to freak out, but it's a classic backwoods American term for a child.
Yeah.
Which
I'd never heard of it before I met your family, though. So
well documented in like the 1800s and the 1700s from this cultural group. Well, that's because it's only from the backwoods cultural tradition. That's where it comes from. But yeah. Anyway, love you to death.
I love you too, gorgeous.
So people were pleased with the last episode?
I think so. Yeah.
They like things that show that women are terrible. This is the one on women will like you less if you apologize, and progressives will like you less, but conservatives and men care less, which is interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't looked at the history of apologies though, but I kind of get the impression when I think about it that apologies aren't even really a thing. I mean, they don't do anything. And biblically speaking, if you did something wrong, you had to pay for it. Like you'd give someone a goat if you maimed someone's child. Like there were exchanges. It wasn't, oh, I'm sorry. You had to pay the price. There were consequences. And this concept of apologizing seems more just like a modern version of prostration that's just purely symbolic and about power plays and dominance hierarchies, and not actually about righting a wrong. It's not about like restorative justice, or actually, I think when people use that term today, they mean something that's like extended long apologies. It's completely feckless, but you know what I mean, right? Like it's not justice and it doesn't make anything better. Actions are really all that matter. But
well, you described it as like prostrating yourself in front of somebody.
Yeah, it's a modern version of prostration. Doesn't fix anything, doesn't make it better.
Anyway, all right. I'll get started. Octavian, what are you up to?
I'm just hoping Ty can those sea creatures are trying to hunt him.
The sea creatures?
Yeah, like you don't think.
Octavian, these aren't sea creatures. This is a little stream.
No, like
They're just aquatic animals.
Yeah, what are they called actually?
Aquatic animals, not sea creatures.
Whoa, wait, that is the aquatic animal.
Yeah, that's an aquatic animal, right, Tracy?
Yeah, and they lived in the water a long time ago. They lived in the water a long time ago.
Well, they live in the water today too, my buddy.
Hi, fish! Hey, Daddy! There's a small fish.
Can you catch it?
I don't think I can. Whoa, this is a slippery rock.
Don't pick up rocks. Sometimes bitey bugs live under them.
Why?
Bitey bugs.
They look
Bitey bugs live under rocks sometimes.